Okay, so get this. India just successfully tested a missile that can travel at 5 times the speed of sound. We're talking hypersonic so fast it's almost impossible to stop. This is a huge GE deal. And it puts India in a very exclusive club when it comes to military tech. I've got a whole stack of reports here about this hypersonic missile test. And honestly, I'm a little blown away. Luckily, I've got an expert with me to break it all down. What are your initial thoughts on this?
Well, it's fascinating because until very recently, hypersonic missiles were almost the stuff of science fiction.
Hmm.
So the fact that India has now successfully tested one, it's a sign of how rapidly this technology is advancing. And what's even more intriguing is what this means for the future of warfare and global power dynamics, really.
Okay, so before we get into all of that, can we take a step back for a sec? For those of us who don't have a PhD in rocket science, what exactly is a hypersonic missile? What makes it so different from, a regular missile?
Imagine this. A regular missile is like a bike, while a hypersonic missile is like a fighter jet strapped to a rocket. It's not just about speed, though that's a huge factor, of course. It's about the ability to maneuver in flight, making it incredibly difficult to track and intercept.
It was like a super fast, super agile, guided projectile. No wonder everyone's talking about them. So let's get into the specifics of India's test. What exactly happened?
India successfully test-fired a long-range hypersonic missile that can carry payloads over 1,500 kilometers. It's almost 1,000 miles. The test took place on Saturday night off the coast of Odisha at a location called APJ Abdul Kalam Island. India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh actually called it a historic moment for the country.
Historic is right. I mean, just wrapping my head around a missile traveling at 5 times the speed of sound is mind-boggling. So we know India successfully tested this missile, but why is this such a game changer? What does it mean for India to have this kind of technology?
It puts them in a very elite club. Before this, only a handful of countries, the US, Russia, and China, had successfully developed and tested hypersonic missiles.
So India is now a major player in this hypersonic arms race.
You could say that, but it's more nuanced than just an arms race. The development of these weapons has the potential to completely reshape the way we think about warfare.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about how this changes the game.
Think about traditional warfare. You have countries trying to build up their defenses. Things like missile defense systems, designed to shoot down incoming threats. But hypersonic missiles are so fast and maneuverable that they essentially render those traditional defenses obsolete. It's like trying to stop a bullet train with a tennis racket.
Okay, that's a little unsettling. But I can see how that would shift the balance of power, especially in regions like South Asia. Yeah. Where there are already existing tensions.
Exactly. India's neighbors like Pakistan and China are undoubtedly paying very close attention to this development. And it's not just about regional power dynamics either. This has implications for global security as well.
So this one test in India has the potential to send ripples across the entire world.
Absolutely. It's a wake-up call for other countries to either develop their own hypersonic capabilities or find ways to defend against them. The ramifications are huge.
We talked about the why this is such a big deal, but I'm also curious about the how. How do these missiles actually work? What makes them capable of reaching those insane speeds?
Well, there are actually two main types of hypersonic missiles. First, you have what are called hypersonic glide vehicles, or HGVs. These are launched like traditional ballistic missiles, but then they detach and glide towards their target at hypersonic speeds.
So they're launched high into the atmosphere and then use that altitude to build up speed as they glide down.
Exactly. And because they can maneuver in flight, they're incredibly difficult to intercept. Then you have hypersonic cruise missiles, which use a special type of engine called a scramjet to maintain hypersonic speed throughout their flight.
A scramjet? What's that? Is that anything like the engines we see on airplanes?
Not quite. Scramjets are designed to operate at supersonic speeds, meaning the air entering the engine is already moving faster than the speed of sound. It's a completely different beast. Imagine trying to keep a campfire burning while driving a speedboat through it. That's the level of control we're talking about with scramjets. They use the momentum of that supersonic air to create combustion and generate thrust. It's pretty mind-boggling.
So it's like a supersonic, air-guzzling, fire-breathing engine. Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. But back to India for a sec. Do we know what kind of hypersonic missile they tested, HGV or cruise missile?
The reports indicate it was a hypersonic cruise missile. This suggests that India has made significant progress in developing scramjet technology, which is one of the biggest hurdles to creating these weapons.
It sounds like the scramjet technology is the key to unlocking hypersonic speed. Can you walk me through how it actually works? I'm trying to picture it in my head, and it's still a little fuzzy.
Sure. Let's break it down. A regular jet engine, like the one on a commercial airliner, uses a series of fans and compressors to suck in air, compress it, mix it with fuel, and ignite it. The hot exhaust then blasts out the back, creating thrust. But a scramjet engine is much simpler because it operates at supersonic speeds. It doesn't need all those bulky compressors.
So it uses the speed of the incoming air to do the compressing for it. Clever.
Exactly. The air enters the engine at supersonic speeds, and the engine's shape is designed to further compress the air. Then fuel is injected. And combustion happens at supersonic speeds as well.
Wait, so everything is happening at supersonic speed. The air intake, the combustion, it seems incredibly chaotic.
It is, and that's one of the biggest challenges of scramjet technology. Maintaining stable combustion under those extreme conditions. We're talking temperatures that can melt metal. It requires incredibly precise engineering and advanced materials.
So not only do you need a brilliant design, but you also need materials that can withstand those incredible temperatures.
You got it. And that's one of the reasons why scramjet technology has been so difficult to develop. It really pushes the boundaries of material science, aerodynamics, and combustion engineering.
So India has managed to figure out how to build a scramjet engine that can withstand those extreme conditions, integrate it into a missile, and successfully test it.
That appears to be the case. And remember, it's not just about getting the engine to work. It's about making it reliable, efficient, and controllable. It's a huge technological achievement.
I'm starting to understand why this test is making such big waves. It's not just about the missile itself, it's about the technological prowess it represents.
Precisely. It signals that India is now a major player in the field of hypersonic technology, with all the implications that come with it.
We've talked about India joining this elite club of countries with hypersonic capabilities, but what does that actually mean? What are the real-world consequences of this technology?
Well, for one thing, it makes traditional defenses much less effective. If you can't shoot down these missiles, they become a much more credible threat. This could embolden countries like India to take bolder actions, knowing that their adversaries have fewer options to respond.
So it could make conflicts more likely.
It's a possibility. Yeah. But there's another side to this coin as well. Some experts believe that hypersonic weapons could actually make conflict less likely because of the fear of escalation.
That's interesting. It's like a high-stakes game of chicken. Everyone's afraid to make the first move. Because the consequences could be too devastating.
Exactly. The sheer destructive power of these weapons could act as a deterrent, forcing countries to think twice before engaging in any kind of aggression.
So it's a double-edged sword. This technology could either make the world more dangerous or more peaceful, depending on how it's used.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? And it highlights the need for clear communication and diplomacy.
Okay, so let's say I'm another country looking at this situation. I'm seeing India test firing these hypersonic missiles, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to catch up. What options do I have?
Well, you could try to develop your own hypersonic weapons program. That's the route that many countries are taking. But it's expensive, technically challenging, and time-consuming. It requires a huge investment in research and development.
What about defenses? Is there anything that can be done to stop these missiles?
That's the million-dollar question. Existing missile defense systems, like the ones designed to shoot down traditional ballistic missiles, are pretty much useless against hypersonic weapons. They're just too fast and too maneuverable. But there is research underway to develop countermeasures.
Like what? What are some of the ideas being explored?
One possibility is developing more advanced radar systems that can track hypersonic missiles despite their speed and maneuverability. This would require incredibly powerful and sophisticated radar technology.
I imagine it's like trying to track a hummingbird with a radar designed for airplanes.
It's a good analogy. You need extremely fast processing speeds and advanced algorithms to make sense of the data. Another idea is to use directed energy weapons, like high-powered lasers, to try to disable or destroy the missiles in flight.
Lasers shooting down missiles? I have to admit that sounds pretty sci-fi, but is it actually feasible?
It's still in the early stages of development, but it has potential. Lasers are becoming more powerful and more compact, and they could theoretically be used to target the sensitive components of a hypersonic missile, disrupting its flight path or disabling its guidance systems.
So it's a technological arms race to see who can develop the most effective countermeasures.
In a sense, yes. And it's not just about technology either. It's about strategy, diplomacy, and international cooperation.
We've talked a lot about the potential dangers of hypersonic missiles, but could they also have some positive applications? Could this technology be used for something other than blowing things up?
That's a good question. And the answer? Potentially yes. While the primary focus has been on military applications, There are some scientists and engineers who believe that hypersonic technology could be used for peaceful purposes as well.
Like what? What are some examples?
One possibility is hypersonic aircraft for super-fast transportation. Imagine being able to fly from New York to London in under an hour.
Now, that would be a game changer.
It would revolutionize travel. And there are other potential applications as well, like launching satellites into orbit more efficiently, or even developing new types of spacecraft for exploring the solar system.
It sounds like there's a whole world of possibilities beyond just warfare.
There is, but it's important to remember that technology is a tool. It's up to us to decide how we use it. And with hypersonic technology, the stakes are incredibly high.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about how these missiles work, why India's test is so significant, and what it means for the future of warfare. But there's another aspect of this whole conversation that I think we need to address.
I agree. We can't talk about such powerful technology without considering the ethical implications.
Yeah, we're talking about weapons that can potentially reach any corner of the globe in a matter of hours and deliver a devastating payload. I have to admit, it's a bit unsettling to think about.
It's understandable to feel that way. The speed and destructive potential of these weapons raise some very serious ethical questions. For one, the possibility of miscalculation or unintended escalation is a major concern. With hypersonic missiles, there's very little time to react, which increases the risk of making a hasty decision. That could have catastrophic consequences.
So it's almost like a hair trigger situation, where a small mistake could lead to a much larger conflict.
That's a good way to put it. And then there's the issue of arms control. How do we prevent a full-blown hypersonic arms race that could destabilize global security? It's already challenging enough to get countries to agree on things like nuclear non-proliferation. Hypersonic technology adds a whole new layer of complexity.
So are there any efforts being made to address these concerns? Are there any international agreements or treaties in the works to regulate hypersonic weapons?
There are some early discussions happening, but nothing concrete yet. The challenge is that this technology is still relatively new, and countries are hesitant to limit their development of it when they don't know how it will play out on the world stage. It's a classic security dilemma. Everyone wants to make sure they have the capability to defend themselves, but in doing so, they might inadvertently make everyone less safe.
It's a tough situation. It feels like we're at a crossroads with this technology. We could either see it lead to a more dangerous world, or we could find a way to manage it responsibly and prevent it from spiraling out of control.
That's exactly the challenge we face. And it's not just about governments and policymakers either. Scientists, engineers, ethicists, and the public all have a role to play in shaping the future of this technology.
What can ordinary people do to get involved in this conversation? It feels like something that's happening at such a high level that it's out of our hands.
That's a common misconception. First and foremost, stay informed. Learn about hypersonic technology, its implications, and the different perspectives on its development and use. Then engage in conversations with your friends, family, and community. Contact your elected officials and let them know your concerns. Support organizations that are working on arms control and disarmament. It might feel like a small act, but collective action can make a difference.
That's encouraging to hear. I think sometimes we forget that we do have a voice in these matters.
We absolutely do. Technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by the choices we make as a society.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I have to say, I came into this feeling a bit overwhelmed by all the information out there about hypersonic missiles, but you've really helped me understand the nuances of this technology, its potential impact on the world, and the ethical challenges it presents.
I'm glad to hear that. It's important to have these conversations and to think critically about the implications of emerging technologies.
Exactly. So, to wrap things up, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
Hypersonic technology is a game changer, no doubt about it. It has the potential to reshape warfare geopolitics and even our daily lives. But it's not a predetermined future. The choices we make today as individuals and as a global community will determine whether this technology ultimately leads to a more dangerous world or a more peaceful one. So stay informed, stay engaged, and let your voice be heard.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. I have a feeling we'll be revisiting this topic again in the future. And to our listener, I encourage you to do your own research and form your own opinions about this rapidly evolving technology. It's something that will affect all of us, so it's crucial that we all understand it.